In this video, I'm going to talk about the concept of don't write repeated code. So the idea is that whenever you want to do something, you find yourself doing something multiple times. You want to avoid writing the same piece of code multiple times. And this is what's called the DRY principle in software development. You can read this Wikipedia page to learn more. If you really want to go deep on how to become a better software developer, it's taken from this book called The Pragmatic Programmer, which I would also recommend. So the best way to understand the concept of DRY is with an example. So on the Attila registration page, when you want to sign up and you type in, like, let's say a problematic email, like let's say Hotmail, you will get this following error, right? And if you type in another, if you do another type of error, like maybe uoft.ca, you get a different error message. Now, notice that these two error messages are almost identical. The only difference is that the text here changes. Everything else is the same, right? Now, one thing to keep in mind, though, like the problem with the way this code is written is that, so you would think that based on what this does, again, it's two things that do pretty much the same thing. It should probably just use the same component. But the way we wrote it in the code is that we basically have it written separately twice here, right? So we have this div here, and then we have this piece of code here. So really, we are repeating ourselves for everything except this code block right here, right? So in terms of don't repeat yourself, we are repeating ourselves, and we shouldn't be, because everything here except for this part is repeated. And to understand why this might be a problem is that if you ever want to change anything, you have to basically make the same changes in multiple places. So I'll give you an example. On the registration page, we actually don't want this to be closable, because if you close it, you can see the learn more link is still here, but the warning message is gone. And then if you now get another error again, like let's say Hotmail, let's try it. Okay, so it's actually alright. So you can see the error message doesn't show up anymore because we've closed it. So now, if you want to basically we want to remove the closable attribute. Now, here's the problem with that, though. We now have to basically change it here, and we have to change it here. Again, not a big deal for a small problem like this, but as you write more and more complex pieces of code, like you can have sometimes find yourself making the same changes multiple times. Unless you want to change the description, or maybe want to change it from a warning to an error, we have to change it here, and we have to change it here. So what we're going to do is that we're going to basically replace all of this with one component that we're going to use in multiple places. Now, the reason why I also wanted to make this video is that this is something that comes up very often in the code that we write. And if we want to write better code, we need to basically be familiar with the concept of DRY, and we need to stop doing it. So, for example, there was a pull request a while back about adding word count to explanation essay questions, to scholarship essay questions. And one of the commits here, I basically said I moved it to its own component, because the same thing that happened here was that we basically were showing users. Let me show you just a screenshot. So basically, we were showing users like this thing that said like what's the word count and be an explainer, and we were showing it both on the scholarship detail page and the question form. And again, this is the same component used in two different places, so it should actually be the same component, but we were writing the same piece of code twice. So what I did, so you can see here, this is like it on the application detail page, right? And this is it on the scholarship view questions page. And so what I did is, okay, like since this is the same component, instead of us running at the same time, we are going to just basically replace all of this repeated code with just a simple component like this that we'll just call once, or call it whenever we need it. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to, again, find a piece of code that already does what we want. So take this, and we're going to basically move something here. Explore for email sign up. And now the difference between this one and the other example that we showed is that here there is actually a difference. Like the two components were literally identical. Now there is one difference, whether it's a .ca error or it's an email provider error. So because of that, we are going to we're going to have to basically pass in an argument that basically distinguishes between the two. So I'm going to call this warning type. Okay, then I'm going to basically replace all this code So step one is just basically doing something like this. Okay, so far so good. All right. Now what we're gonna do though is we're gonna basically say, okay, we need to know if it's a email provider error. So we're gonna basically say warning type is equal to. We're gonna copy this description. So and we're gonna do the same thing for this one here. Copy this description. See, warning type is equal to. So we have to probably explain this too. So add lots of commentary. Assume that an email ending with .ca is school. Okay, that's basically adding a comment so I understand that. Because basically, if someone sees this code in the future, they might be like, wait, just because you end with .ca, it doesn't mean it's a school email. So just wanted to explain that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is this. You're going to say warning type is equal to. So it's a default value, say. Warning type is equal to email provider, warning type is equal to school email, okay? And then we're going to basically say let description equal, and then if warning type is equal to school email, we do something like that. Oh, you know what we can do? Since it's over multiple lines. Okay, there we go. And then for the original description, we can use this. Okay, and then let description equal description. Okay. There you have it. So now we have Hotmail gives this error, and then if you go .ca, it's the same error. And now instead of basically having our code repeated twice, we have it just repeated once, right? So you can see before it was all of this code, and now we just replaced it with this. And now if we need to make a change, for example, like if we want to make it not closable anymore, all we have to do is just remove it here once, and then it will basically be updated for both types of comments. Okay, and then right, see, so just like that, the component has been updated. And I think, I'm not sure about it, but I think it basically updates faster because we're using the same component as the other one where we had to be using two different components, so it would have to re-render. Now it's the same component, so we're just basically loading it once and changing it. So that's how you can make your code more modular and less repeating, and you don't have to repeat yourself.